What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm John Cusick here, and we're back with Outspoken. I tried to do a video last week. Unfortunately, I was back home in Bayfield, and I don't have a good enough Wi-Fi in order to upload the video. I was going to upload it this past weekend, but it was just a little bit outdated. So we're going to start here. It's a new Tuesday. We got a new college football playoff poll. Not much to talk about with that. Bama, Ohio State, Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Washington, while Michigan falls to 5, and Wisconsin sits at 6. I think that's pretty normal. I think that's what everybody expected when we talk about this college football playoff that's coming up here. The selection will be on Sunday. Got a huge game in the Pac-12. You got CU playing Washington in Santa Clara. In reality, CU has a legitimate shot, but they got to beat Washington pretty handily, in my opinion. I think most people will agree with me. They've already got a loss against Michigan, who's ranked ahead of them, so it's going to be really tough. But if they end up beating Washington by 30 points or something like that, you never know. We saw TCU drop from 3 to 6 when they won out a couple years ago when Ohio State snuck in there. They shut out Wisconsin in the conference game, so big things can happen. We got a problem in the Big Ten. Penn State beat Ohio State. Ohio State beat Wisconsin. Makes the Big Ten a little curious, a little interesting. I still think Ohio State's going to be in no matter what. If anything, Michigan will jump back into the top 4 if Washington loses to CU. Meanwhile, CU will probably jump up into the top 6. So that's my take on this one. I want to talk about the Heisman really quick. Lamar Jackson, I feel like is fumbling it away, and I don't mean any pun, anything right there, but he didn't play very well this last game against Kentucky. They took a loss to a team that they should not have lost to. They should have beat them pretty handily, in my opinion. And then I want to talk about D'Onta Foreman. He's being overlooked because Texas was awful this past year, and I don't agree with Charlie Strong firing still. Tom Herman, good luck to you. Have fun. I can't wait to see what you do at Texas. You turned Houston around. It's going to be fantastic. Meanwhile, D'Onta Foreman didn't rush for under 100 yards all year long. He posted over 2,000 yards, and the last person to do that was Ricky Williams, and he won the Heisman that year. So I want the committee to at least invite D'Onta Foreman. He deserves to be in the candidacy. And if you talk about the most valuable player, then you really got to give it to Lamar Jackson, because look at what he's done for that team. We're going to talk about we'll talk about Sunday more next week. We're going to talk about some predictions for that. We're going to move to the NFL really quick. Top 8. I couldn't really rank these teams without going down to 8. So I got the Cowboys, I got the Patriots, the Raiders, the Seahawks, the Chiefs at 5, the Broncos at 6, the Falcons at 7, the Lions at 8. The thing that concerns me with the Cowboys is their defense. They gave up over 500 yards in that game against Washington on Thanksgiving Day. Their offense is great. Their defense needs to step up and get some stops. If you put them against a team that's able to stop them a couple times, is their defense going to stop them a couple times in order to make that a game, or is it going to get out of hand? We haven't seen that quite yet. The offense has been so explosive that they've just outscored teams, and they did that against Washington. Kirk Cousins continues to make money. We'll put it simply. He's making money every week. He threw for over 450 yards in that game, and it says a lot about the Cowboys defense. It says a lot about the Redskins offense. But Pats without Gronk, I'm not sure their offense is that stellar as we thought it was going to be. The Jets, they have a great run defense. They shut down LeGarrette Blount. They did what they needed to do in order to make that game close. It was just a really ugly win for the Patriots. They don't move anywhere. I had these teams ranked like this last week. The only change was the Broncos moved down to 6. The Chiefs moved up to 5 because of this last game. But I want the Patriots need to show me a little bit more. You know, you can't. I think it's Malcolm Mitchell. The fact that I don't even know his name is kind of bad. He's not the real answer for the Patriots. Tom Brady, I love that he can make plays for his team, but without Gronk, I just don't see the explosiveness there. And Tim Hasselbeck proposed a great question: are his best days behind him? And it might be. You never know. He gets hurt a lot, and it has to do with his physicality. Moving to the Raiders, their defense is bad as well. They squandered a 17-point lead against Carolina this past weekend. Oh, excuse me. No, I have that flipped. Panthers squandered that lead. The offense is still potent. The question is, will the Raiders defense be able to handle a stand-up as well? Kind of like the Cowboys. They're not very good. You know, Khalil Mack's an animal. He did something. The last person did it was Charles Woodson. He had a fumble, a forced fumble, an interception, a touchdown, a sack, and I think he forced the fumble as well. So that's something that hasn't been done since Charles Woodson when he played for the Packers. He's an animal. Waiting for Carl Joseph to show up. Their cornerback, their defensive back play isn't stellar. We got to see more from the Oakland defense, or which is going to be an interesting playoff run for them. The Seahawks, I'm not sure what to think of them anymore. Earl Thomas didn't play. I'm not sure if he makes that he makes a big difference, but I don't think that you should lose 14-5 against a less than stellar defense in the Buccaneers. The Cardinals dismantled that defense early in the year pretty handily, and they shut down Jameis Winston pretty easily. But Jameis has done fantastic. Him and Mariota have blossomed in their sophomore year. The Chiefs, I think, are actually real. They beat the Broncos. They went into Sports Authority and had a great game. Granted, the offensive line is not really there for the Broncos. Their defense gave up a little bit more than they normally do, which makes me a little more concerned. Their defense isn't as good as last year, as well as they just wasted the game from Trevor Siemian, where he almost threw 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I think the Chiefs are real. They move in the top 5 for a reason. Alex Smith, I talked about him being a game manager, not being the answer, but he fits Andy Reid's offense. He does a wonderful job maintaining what their game plan is throughout the game, and he provided wins. They're a stellar team this year, and even the last 2 years, So the Broncos I just talked about, they're a little bit vulnerable, I think a little bit more than normal. They don't have a running game. Trevor Siemian had his best game of the year. Really, he just picked on Phillip Gaines. If anybody wants to know what his stats were, I think he was thrown at 8 times for 6 completions for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. So if that says anything about Phillip Gaines, Trevor Siemian was smart enough to at least exploit it every single time. Emmanuel Sanders had a wonderful game. I don't want to discredit the Broncos at all. Their defense is still great. They're just a little bit vulnerable. Falcons' offense is real. I think we knew that. They got a new weapon this week in Tyler Gabriel. They won a game against the Cardinals pretty handily. When Tyler Gabriel played spectacularly, and Julio Jones had just over 30 yards and receiving yards. So look out for them. Let's see if their defense also decides to step up. They always seem to be playing shootout games as well. And then lastly, the Lions are playing with fire, man. There's 2 teams in the league that have trailed in the fourth quarter all year. I've trailed in the fourth quarter of every single game this year. One is the Lions, and they're 7-4. The other is the Browns. As most of you probably know, they're 0-12. So I'm curious to what the Browns will do at the end of the year. Are they going to go for a quarterback? Are they going to fix the defense? They need a lot of help. It's going to be a couple of years before Browns can start thinking about winning championships. Probably 10 years, maybe. I don't know. They seem to be cursed. Talk about MVP. You got Zeke, Dak, David Carr's brother, Derek Carr, and Tom Brady. Brady's done wonderful since he's come back from his suspension. Carr is an animal. He's playing lights out. I don't know if many people expected this from Derek Carr, except for maybe the Raiders. Him and Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree have done a wonderful job running back by committee with Jalen Richard and Latavius Murray. Murray's running hard since he's been back. Zeke obviously leads the league in rushing. Dak has the highest QBR in the league, and it's hard to argue with those things. So I think we're about to go into week 13, if I'm not mistaken. So I think, week 13, we're going to go into that. These next 4 games will probably determine the MVP. It's probably going to pan out that way. Moving on to the NBA, Russell Westbrook is averaging a triple-double, and I'm kind of speechless because I didn't really think he'd be able to do this at all. I don't know. I guess obviously the numbers are inflated sometimes when there's either blowout wins or blowout losses, but Russ just seems to keep doing it all game long. It requires a lot of energy for him to do this, and my question is, will he continue to do this the rest of the year? And I don't know if he can. That's not against Russell Westbrook. That's not a knock against his ability. It's just a lot. It takes a lot to do that, and he's doing a hell of a job so far. James Harden is doing a hell of a job this far as well. They lead the league in triple-doubles right now. And then we got LeBron James, who might be the greatest all-around player in the NBA, but Russ is going to challenge that this year. The question is, can the Thunder make the playoffs? I still say no. I still don't think that they can make the playoffs. Last time he did this, they played 500 ball, and they weren't very good. So there's nobody around him. He's got no three-point shooting. It's literally Russell Westbrook against another team. And the assists come from layups. They come from wide-open shots. At some point, something's got to give, I think. The Cavs look like they're firing on all cylinders. I said they looked complacent last week, and then Kevin Love burst for 34 points in the first quarter. Kyrie Irving's having great games, and LeBron's having the best passing year of his career, and that's what he's always wanted to do, is what it sounds like. And my next thing is, can we stop taking LeBron James for granted? He's doing wonderful things. He's doing things we haven't seen ever, and everybody just throws it out the way and says Steph Curry's the MVP or so-and-so's the MVP. And you take Russell Westbrook off the Thunder, that team's awful. You take LeBron off that team, I still think they're a 500 team because of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. But you saw what LeBron did when he came over to the Cavaliers that year. So he's got to be the best player in the league still. Let's stop taking him for granted. Let's watch him actually do great things and stop criticizing his every move. It feels like that's what we've been doing. Clippers came out the game hot. They've suffered 2 bad losses in a row. They've played great on the defensive end, and I think that's attributed to them not changing anybody. All they did was add pieces. I think they added bench players, and they kept their core starters, and they got out to a really hot start, going out 14-2, and then losing the last 2. They're now 3rd in the division, the conference. Super early in the year, obviously. We're almost 20 games in, but the Warriors seem to be figuring out with Durant. They're playing great defense again, and they score a lot of points. I want to know what people are going to do with that trio with Thompson and Curry and Durant. And then you got Draymond can put buckets in too. He's a great all-around player on that team. I think that there's going to be obviously a huge mismatch when it comes to the playoffs. I would love to see what people are going to do with that team. In the West, Mike Conley got hurt today. Broken vertebrae, if I'm not mistaken. Not going to get surgery, but it really hurts the chances for the Grizzlies this year. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. Marc Gasol is probably the best player on that team right now, and that makes it really tough in my opinion. As gifted as he is as an offensive center, a lot of his game does come from the pick and pop and the pick and roll with Mike Conley. I think Conley going out, you're going to see a drastic change in this team for the Grizzlies. Unfortunately, they sit currently at 11-7 right now. At the 5 seed, I want to see what's going to happen. A lot of teams are underperforming. I think the Portland Trailblazers are underperforming. The Jazz, I also think, are underperforming. You could say Oklahoma City is overperforming. You could say the Lakers are overperforming. I personally think the Timberwolves are underperforming, and the Pelicans were an 8 seed 2 years ago. So we're going to see how this goes for them in the next 6 to 8 weeks. Moving to college basketball. Kentucky is full of All-Americans. I'm sure everybody knows that by now. I mean, you got Duke, you got Kansas, you got Michigan State, you got U of A. You got lots of teams that have All-Americans on their team, but it feels like Kentucky has 5 players that are All-Americans on their team, and I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen in the draft, but this is turning out to be one of the best draft classes in recent years. You got loaded point guards. I've been looking at some big boards lately. Just Chad Ford. You got Josh Jackson at 1, he's a forward. You got Harry Giles at 2, he's a forward. And then you got a group of guards here. You got Markelle Fultz, who plays for Washington. Don't sleep on him. Probably the most complete player in the draft. Dennis Smith from NC State, he's a freshman. Like Harry Giles busted his ACL his senior year. Didn't get much, I don't want to say much credit or much exposure. That's the word I'm looking for. In his senior year, but he played well this summer. Got this dude from France, excuse me if I mess up his name, Frank Ntilikina. He's 6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan. And he's a point guard. That's a freak to me. That's athletic presence right there. You got Lonzo Ball from UCLA, and you got De'Aaron Fox from Kentucky. You got Malik Monk from Kentucky. Ivan Rabb in there for a forward. I really do think it's loaded. I think this is going to be a really fun draft for people to watch, and I think it's going to change how the game is played a little bit. Excuse the color of my face right now as I am watching Wisconsin versus Syracuse. My face will change a little bit. Hopefully I can fix that. But like I said, huge draft class coming up here in 2017, and a lot of teams can load up. One of those teams being the Celtics, who have a pick from the Nets, who made an awful trade with them. Awful trade. They're probably going to give up 2 top 3 picks in the last 2 years because of that trade. So look for teams to load. And then finally, I want to end on the baseball market. Yoenis Cespedes signed a 4-year deal, $110 million. Probably overpaid a little bit, but he went back to the Mets. Brings power back to that brings power back to that lineup, and I think that's huge for them. They've got stellar pitching in Syndergaard, DeGrom, Steven Matz. I'm missing someone off the top of my head right now, but the pitching staff is stellar. Familia at the back end is great. They're just missing power. They've been the worst offense in the league the past 2 years, and they made the World Series 2 years ago, and they made the playoffs last year, and they gave people a run for the money. Oh no, they didn't make the playoffs. Excuse me. I apologize. Obviously, my stats are a little messed up, but they're this close, in my opinion, and I think Cespedes helps a lot with that. So expect them to be back at the top of the NL East, along with the Washington Nationals. The free agent market's less than stellar. Rich Hill's the best starting pitcher. I haven't heard much about him lately. He's talked about the Yankees, talked about going to the Dodgers. Wilson Ramos is still yet to sign. Justin Turner still yet to sign. Dexter Fowler is still a big player in free agency. So we're going to see what turns out. And the CBA hasn't even been signed yet, so we might not even be playing baseball right now. Take a back burner right now. There's a huge potential blockbuster. Chris Sale is a really, really likable trade right now. He's very underpaid for the starting pitcher and has team control for the next 3 years. There's a lot of teams looking for him. I know the Nationals were, I know the Braves were, even the Marlins were looking at him, but they're going to want a lot for him. And obviously, you got a pitcher that's being paid $13 million a year, well under the starting pitching market, especially after what David Price did last year with signing that huge deal for the Red Sox. You're going to have to give us some prospects for him, but I think Chris Sale's with it. I think the White Sox are ready to sell because after their hot start last year, they went right down in the cellar. We're going to see what they do. I think that's something to look forward to this upcoming winter. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that happens in baseball. I think that's going to be the biggest move of free agency, unfortunately, and that kind of sucks as a free agent market, but it means that teams are trying to stay competitive and keeping their core players around, and I think that's good for baseball. That's all I got for you guys today. This has been Outspoken. I'm John Cusick once again. We'll be back on the air on KMSA 91.3 this Thursday with my partner Darren Burton and Aaron Simons. We're going to have a great time talking about college football and the NFL. Hopefully you guys tune in. That's at 11 a.m. I'm signing out right now. Thanks for tuning in.